Surprise mother.
I'm with the homie. MIX.
Yo, yo, no need to fear, Raider Nation. I'm here where the autumn winds blow 12 months out the year. What's good? What's good, everybody? It's your boy Severe Raider, and hey, we just finished, finished up two pretty good playoff games. Got one result that I wanted, one result that I necessarily didn't want, but that's neither here nor there. Got a lot to talk about, a lot to get to. So without further ado, you know who I'm on with. My boy Pharaoh.
What's going on?
What's going on? What's going on, Pharaoh? How you feeling?
Hey man, I feel good, man. Hey, it's another beginning to another off season. Pretty early. I'd rather it be pretty late for us, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah,
But there's a lot to talk about, man. It's
man,
rumors going left and right. We kind of expected it
man.
from GMs to coaches, and we're gonna get it. We're gonna get into all of that in a little bit, man.
Facts,
But
facts,
hey,
facts,
man.
man,
I'm glad to be going live on your channel, man. Hey, salute, man. If
man.
y'all haven't subscribed, we are going live on Severe Raiders channel, so make sure to subscribe to his channel. My
Yes,
guy
yes.
be spitting facts left and right, man. But yeah, man. Hey, man, I'm glad to talk Raider football for sure.
For sure, man. A lot going on, man. It's gonna be a very busy off season, So, we're in preparation, to get our playoff team in order, ready for next year. As we've seen by some of the teams in the playoffs this year and last year, a lot can change in one off season, man. You draft well. You handle free agency well. You make some good coaching decisions, some good decisions with your GM, and you can be in the same position that these teams are in currently. So, hopefully, we're laying the foundation right now, for some future success.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Man, it's a lot to talk about. Hey, you just want to go get just hop right into it, man, because it's so much to get into, man. Because
Man, let's
unexpectedly,
hop right
especially
into it.
it's because it's coming from an unexpected place.
Yes,
Obviously, everybody knows what we're talking about. Y'all seen the thumbnail.
yeah,
Y'all, if anybody hasn't known it, you guys gonna find out. Maxx Crosby kind of came out and made some really strong comments about
he did.
where the Raiders or what the Raiders need to do at the head coach position. And I understand where he's coming from, but it was pretty strong
Yeah.
coming from him, especially Max.
Nah, yeah, facts, man. Max is Mr. Raider himself. These days he got the Raider tat. I think he represents the Raiders brand. I think he's the when you think about the Raiders now, he's the him and Devontae are the two guys you probably think of, man. So for him to come out so strongly, and so publicly, I think last time he kind of expressed who he wanted as head coach. But I think he did it more in a low key way. But I think now he's he didn't necessarily get his way last time, and the results kind of speak for themselves. So I think he's kind of going a little more public this time, and hopefully he gets the results that he desires. But yeah, man. If anybody hasn't seen it, Max was on his podcast, and he kind of laid down the gauntlet for Mark Davis and the Raiders brass who are making the decision in terms of the future head coach.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I'm gonna go ahead and set up the clip. Man, if y'all haven't liked the video, make sure to like the video. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button.
Yes,
And
sir.
also
Yes,
hit that
sir.
notification bell. Hit that notification bell. Let me 1 second. I'm gonna set that up in just a second. Let's see. 1 second here. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom.
It's crazy, man. But it's been a
So
lot of. Now go ahead.
yeah. This is the clip. I'm gonna go ahead and play it in just a second. Hold on 1 second. Boom. Y'all can see it here. If y'all can tell me, you can see it real quick. Let me know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and play it.
Again, if it happens again, what does that mean for your future as a Raider if they do not go with AP?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I'm gonna have to consider everything. Honestly, nothing's off the table. Clearly, I made it loud and clear that I want to be a Raider for life. I want to be here. I want to win here. I want to retire here. But I mean, if you go and start from scratch again, I mean, I got to consider everything. I mean, from everything. So that's something that I've talked to with all my people and all my team, and obviously you guys included a little bit. But yeah, at some point, you got to do what's right, for the fans, for the team, for the future. You gotta put everything into consideration. So for me, obviously I'm the least, selfish person when it comes to that. Like, I'll go to the farthest, I'll let it get to the last extent before I pull out of something. Like, I don't quit anything I do. So, I want to be a Raider for sure. But if, we go in a different direction, then, there's nothing that's off the table.
If
Ooh,
So he
strong
comes
words,
out
man.
he comes out firing, bro. He comes out
Yeah,
firing
man.
with some strong comments, man. What'd you think of that?
Yeah, man. He said a lot. There was a lot to be said there. He kept talking about how he wants to be a Raider. He wants to remain a Raider. But he also said that at that point there was nothing that was off the table. And the insinuation there was that he could possibly request a trade. I guess my thoughts around that is that even if we keep Antonio Pierce, is that we're still kind of going to go through some sort of reset, right? Unless we, I mean, I don't know why he would think that would be any different than hiring a brand new, because Antonio Pierce is still technically a brand new head coach. He's going to be a brand new head coach. Pretty much all the staff here, are guys that were hired by the previous regime. So what does he mean by starting over? Because if we bring in a guy like Harbaugh, Harbaugh was hired in San Fran, instant success, right? We just seen it this year. Shane Steichen hired with the Colts, instant success. D'Amico Ryans hired with the Texans, instant success. Doug Peterson hired with the Jaguars, instant success. So, like, what is starting over? Because just because you hire a new coach doesn't mean like you're going through a whole rebuild. You could essentially just hire a new coach, somebody that's the right person for the job, and have success instantly. And we've seen it done time and time again. So, but he's made it clear who he wants. He's made it very clear who he wants, man. And he's put the ball in Mark Davis's court. So we'll see how Mark Davis handles that. I will say this: there are two people in America that do not like being told what to do. That's black women and rich billionaires. And so they don't. So so if you
Shots
tell
fired.
either one of them what to do, tell either one of them what to do, you could be in a world of hurt, man. So it could be a situation where him saying that, how does that affect Mark Davis? Does that kind of push him towards Antonio Pierce, or does that push him away, saying, hey, you know what, somebody's going to try to tell me how to run my franchise that I've been part of, essentially my entire life. So I don't know how he'll take that.
See, for me is like I understand where Max is coming from. I mean, since he's been a Raider, he's literally and as fans, we've seen everything, and he's kind of seen everything as a player, meaning that he's had multiple coaches. He's, there's a lot of instability with the organization, and you could tell Max is trying to do things the right way. He's trying to win. He's trying to be that leader, but he doesn't want to go through a whole rebuild. He doesn't want to start over. When he feels like when he feels like the guy's already in the building, he wants that guy to continue to be there, because before it was I think it was Bisaccia, and he kind of mentioned that in his podcast where they went a different direction and it didn't work, and he doesn't want the same thing to repeat itself. So I understand where he's coming from, but at the end of the day, I don't want Mark Davis and the future GM of the Raiders and whoever is going to be the decision maker, part of that decision making process of who the next head coach is going to be. I don't want that decision to be made based off what is the best decision for the Raiders for the present and the future. And whoever that is, that's kind of my thing. Whoever is the best head coach for the Raiders, who should be the head coach. Whether it's it's AP, Jim Harbaugh, I don't care who it is. Let Mark. I think Mark Davis is doing the right thing by looking for the GM first, so then he can bring that GM along to interview the next head coach for the Raiders, and then they figure it out. Like, okay, who's the next head coach going to be? But if he's making a decision based off what the fans are saying or what the players are saying, and that's the only reason. Man, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if that's a good thing. But I think Maxx Crosby's heart in the right place. I felt like he took a lot of heat with his comments. You could see all over. Some people were like, "Oh man, like Max, he wants to get traded." And I know you guys see the traded, but I don't think Maxx Crosby wants to leave the Raiders. He loves being a Raider. He's everything that he is the face of the Raiders. He does not want to leave. He's just frustrated. He just at this point he's just frustrated. He just wants AP to be the guy, and I think there's a good chance, and we'll get into that. But there's a good chance that he is. But I think Mark Davis just needs to let that process, and I think he's going to do the right thing right now. Because if you guys notice, they haven't had any head coach interviews. It's just been rumors. All we've seen is rumors, and we'll get into the rumors in just a second. But I think at the end of the day, like right now, the Raiders they're doing the right thing. They're doing the right thing, and that's hiring the GM first. And once they hire the GM, hire the head coach, and the rest will take. Hey, it might be AP and Champ Kelly, but I just don't think they should make a decision based off, the fans want this, the players want this. I think it should maybe it could be a piece of the pie, but it shouldn't be the main component to hiring the head coach or the GM. It should be based off like, hey, these guys are qualified. We feel like we can win a Super Bowl with this guy at coach, this guy at GM. I don't think it should be based off, Maxx Crosby said so.
Yeah. Now I completely agree. That's listening exclusively to your fans and to your players is no way to run a franchise, right? Like they're fans and they're players for a reason. So you want to make sure you do your due diligence as the Raiders have been doing. Ideally, you bring in a GM, you bring in your GM candidates, you interview them, you select the best GM candidate, from the people that you interview, and you let them, kind of in coordination with the owner, but primarily on them, you let them make their head coaching hire. That's how most successful franchises work. And I know people get into this thing where we're the Raiders, we're not like other franchises. We're gonna do things the Raider way. Well, we've been doing that shit. They're doing that since '93, right? Since the implementation of free agency. We've made the playoffs like 6 times since then. So apparently we got to do some things differently. We have to start moving like these other franchises. Still with our Raider flair on there. Still throw our, do our thing. But, we have to start operating like these other franchises because it's a formula. We know how to, we know how it's done. We've seen how it's been successful in the past. And, when you start trying to reinvent the wheel, that's when you start, just spinning your wheels and start spiraling and having, the results that you're not looking for.
Right. My guy, just another DJ says, "Yo, we finally got Severe Show up and running. Yes, finally, we got it going.
Yes.
But it's here. And hey, man, hey, look, we got some good stuff to talk about. Hey, look, at the end of the day, I think it's just, hey, I think this is water under the bridge, man. I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I think people are overreacting. But Maxx just wants his guy. I don't think Maxx is gonna be Raider for life. I think, in my opinion, I don't see it. I'll believe it when I see it. I believe it when I see it. I know he's I'm sure he's frustrated with the Raiders losing and not. He wants to be out there in the playoffs. He doesn't want to be at home watching the playoffs. I get it. But I think the Raiders are doing the right thing, taking their time, going through that process, interviewing the candidates. I think yesterday they were able to interview a few GMs. I think Terrence Gray, the Bills candidate. I think he's like a player personnel guy. I think they gave him a GM interview. I think another guy was I think Ed Dodds from the Colts.
Yeah.
And then another guy who I think they had about 2 or 3 interviews yesterday at GM.
It was Ed Dodd from the Colts. Was it Trey Brown from the Bengals and
Yep.
the guy from the Bills. I forget whose name I can't remember right now. But it was the like director of player personnel for the Bills. So those are awesome solid candidates, man. There's awesome solid candidates. And so I mean I know we already have Champ Kelly in place. People have an affinity for Champ Kelly. And Champ Kelly is respected around the league, but he's coming from a Bears franchise that really haven't been successful at drafting in I don't know how long. So you see guys like Dodds, who's coming from the Colts organization, who's been very good at doing what he's doing there. Trey Brown from the Bengals has been very successful franchise as of late, and the Bills. The guy from the Bills who's been a very successful franchise as of late as well. So I mean, we got some decisions to make at GM, and once we get the GM in place, I think that's when we start. That's when we will start. We will see. Hey, you know what? We'll start looking at head coaching candidates. So the process is taking a little bit longer than some people may like, but I think you have to do your due diligence.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, man. And we Avakazi, he says, just hire AP already. Just hire AP. Like you just said, I think it's a process. I think I seen somewhere where they can't hire anybody until like the 21st or 22nd. Because they still gotta hire some minority, not hire, but they gotta interview like some minority candidates. They still gotta like go through that whole process because they haven't even interviewed head coaches yet. So it's still early, bro. It's way early. Just another DJ says, I think Mark has been trying to deviate from doing things the old Raiders way. It just hasn't worked the way we all hoped. Yeah, man. And that's the one thing that gives me a little hope is because Mark is trying everything. He's tried. He's given Gruden a 10-year contract. He's hired the GM first. He's hired the GM and the coach at the same time. Now he's just trying to figure it out, and he's trying to do it the right way. But it's a process, and it's been a while since the Raiders were able to put together some winning seasons. But we'll see, man. Hopefully this time around it works out. But yeah, man. Let's get into some of the coaching rumors, man. So some of the coaching rumors that we've been hearing about throughout the week. I don't know. The Patriot way might be back. We just got done telling y'all it's a process. But do you think it's a possibility that they can come back?
No, I think it is a possibility. So, before we hired John Gruden, right? The 2 finalists for the Raiders job was John Gruden and Bill Belichick. And I think Al Davis ended up going with Bill Belichick because he had a history of hiring offensive minded head coaches because he wanted the defense ran the way he wanted the defense ran, right? He wanted that man on the outside, like that's how he wanted us to play defense. That same way. And so he usually would kind of people who were the defensive coaches, he wouldn't be able to implement the system that he liked to implement. Al Davis was big on having. That's why he was so big on corners all the time because he felt that if you're able to lock down the receivers on the outside with these corners, then that makes the job easier for the rest of your defense. But when the league changing all of these rules like that really couldn't be the model anymore. Back in the day, you can just like assault receivers on the outside, and
Stick them.
so yeah, man, exactly. So I think that's part of the reason why he didn't go with Belichick. And then, that whether Belichick would have had the same level of success with us as he had with the Patriots, that remains to be seen. But, we decided not to hire Belichick. Then Belichick goes on to be the greatest coach of all time. So I think that's one of those things where, hey, could Mark be like, damn, he wants to right the mistake that, potentially Al Davis made? Possibly. And then you have Mike Vrabel. And now I think people talk about Mike Vrabel as being like the Patriot way, and I'm not sure that's necessarily the case because Mike Vrabel never coached under Bill Belichick. He was a player there, and so I think that the difference when you're a player there is that you have intimate knowledge of, hey, you know what, me as a player, this was effective. Me as a player, I didn't like this. So you being in under that regime, saying, hey, what worked for you as a leader on the team, as a guy that won multiple Super Bowls. Hey, I feel this worked. I can take this and implement this. I know I didn't like that. Is there a better way to do this? Unlike Josh McDaniels, who came up as a coach and not seeing it from the player side. So I think that's where the kind of the difference lies.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough though, man, because like I think we touched on it a little bit, like about I don't know if we talked during the week. I think we talked about Vrabel. I'm not really like I like him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a bad coach, but then he did make some interesting decisions as a head coach for the Titans. I mean, he
Yeah.
hired his OC was Todd Downing.
Yeah.
After
Man.
after Arthur Smith left to be a head coach with the Falcons, and Arthur Smith is a solid OC. There's a reason why
Solid,
he was a
very
head.
solid.
Yeah. There's a reason why he was a head coach candidate. But like his replacement was Todd Downing, and he had him there for like 2 to 3 years. I'm like, bro. And I had some Titan fans. I was trying to let them know, man. Like a few
Yeah.
friends, let them know, like, hey, look, man. As a Raider fan, that one season. Like we had our 26 season, I think it was a 26 season, and he was the offense coordinator in 2017.
Yeah.
Terrible, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm glad he wasn't offense coordinator after that. But that's the one thing that you get with Vrabel is like, man, like if you get him he's a good coach. I don't think he's a bad coach. But who's gonna be running that offense? Who's gonna pick? Is it Arthur Smith gonna come back? I kind of like that. That's not a bad
Exactly.
move.
Exactly. I mean, look, we know for damn sure Todd Downing ain't getting the job. Like,
Man,
that's
I
one
hope
thing
not.
we know for sure. Todd Downing would not be getting the job. Like,
Hell
bro, you
nah.
got me fired, low key. So he would not be getting the job there. But yeah, I mean, I just think that if you hire either Bill Belichick or Mike Vrabel, you run into kind of the same situation as you ran into with Josh McDaniels, and that is they will have absolutely no leash with the fan base. So if they start off and they're not instantly winning, the fan base will immediately turn on those guys, like they immediately turned on Josh McDaniels. The second Josh McDaniels wasn't successful right out the gate, I mean, people already didn't like him. So the second that he wasn't like coming out like gangbusters, it was already like, oh, we don't like this guy. He's not qualified to be a head coach. We don't want him. We don't want Patriots West. We don't want none of this. And that kind of just snowballed until he was finally fired. So I think an 8-8 season with AP will have a completely different spin on, or not 8. It'll be like what it'll be 8-9 or 9-8. Having that kind of season with AP, the fans will have a completely different feeling about that season than if we go 9-8 with Mike Vrabel or with Bill Belichick. You feel what I'm saying? Because then,
Yeah.
like, if we go 9-8 with them, they'll be, oh, AP would have had us 11-6 and in the playoffs, and he already went 500. He didn't even have his guy, so I think that that shouldn't be part of the calculation. But at the end of the day, this is a business as well, and business is based on your consumers. The fans are the consumers, so that is something that will be taken into account.
So pretty much what you're saying is that like the expectations will be lower with AP. Are you saying the expectations will be lower with AP, or do you think people will have a lot more patience
A lot
with
more
AP?
patience. A lot more patience. If they can have the exact same record, right? If we would if AP would go 9-8, people will have a positive outlook on that 9-8 season. If Mike Vrabel or Bill Belichick comes in and goes 9-8, there will be pitchforks and in the Vegas headquarters, man. So that it'll have a different feel. People will be a lot more willing to give AP, hey, you know what? He's a first year head coach. He's changing the culture. Yada yada yada. They'll have a ton more patience with him. Than they'll have with somebody else. I think even Harbaugh for I think if Harbaugh doesn't come out winning immediately like that first year like he did with San Fran, people will say, we should have hired AP. And it'll always be that factor in the back of their mind that, we should have hired this guy. Like we're doing with Bisaccia, right? There's no guarantee Bisaccia would have had any more success with this team than Josh McDaniels had. But the fact that people wanted him, they're always going to say, hey, you know what? He would have did this, or they're going to assume that he would have had more success just because the team currently isn't having the level of success that they would like.
I feel like AP is different from Bisaccia because there's a higher ceiling with AP.
That's true. True.
Maybe
And
because
the age gap too.
yeah, it's because the age gap. Maybe there's I feel like there's more room for improvement with him. He's younger, like I said. So I think him it's different. It's a little bit different. And the fact that like the Raiders, even though they didn't make the playoffs, like the way that defense was playing, the way the team was
Yeah.
playing, I don't know. I don't know if it was. I know that 2021 season it ended in the playoff berth, which is special. I get it,
Yeah.
but there were some games where Bisaccia got blown out
Yeah.
as a head coach for the Raiders,
Yeah.
specifically against the Chiefs, who Pierce was able to beat in Arrowhead. And the other game in
Yeah.
Vegas was a competitive game until like the second half. Obviously Mahomes and pulled away,
Yeah.
but it like every game was competitive with Pierce, and the defense is playing out of their mind, and he's playing with a staff that's not really his, so it makes you kind of think like, man, if you give him his own staff, like it just kind of like there's a little bit of like, okay, maybe we got a diamond in the rough right here. Maybe we have the Raiders have found their head coach, but
but okay. But let me play devil's advocate here, right? Let me play devil's advocate.
okay,
Let's say we give AP the ability to hire his own staff.
okay,
Who's to say he doesn't pull a Todd Downing out of his hat, right? Who's to say that that Patrick Graham doesn't say, you know what, I'm cool here. Let me go somewhere else. Then AP hires a bad defensive coordinator. Does Edgar Bennett stay on this staff? Does Chris Ash stay on the staff? Does Coach Timo, the other DB coach, does he stay on the staff? Those are all guys so those are also, as much as we want to down talk Josh McDaniels for the offensive stuff, deservedly so. He also hired this defensive staff, or he was involved with hiring this defensive staff, and they've done a great job. So all of those, everybody on staff is Josh McDaniels hires. So who's to say any of them would want to stay with AP, let alone AP will want to keep them, right? We could see a completely different coaching staff on both sides of the ball.
I'll say this. I think with McDaniels, whatever it was, with McDaniels, I thought the defense was solid. I'm like, well, you know what? Defense has been actually has been a little surprised, even with McDaniels as head coach, because they were able
Yes.
to keep us in games. But when Pierce became head coach, they went to a whole different level. Like like if you look at the numbers, and I think I posted it
Yeah,
a couple weeks back, but it was crazy. Like they're like
yeah,
top of the league since he's taken over as head coach, top of the league in defensive stats. Like,
yeah.
and maybe that's not by accident. You know, he's a
No,
he's a linebackers coach. You know, he has a defensive background as a head coach. I'm sure he was able to make some adjustments, work with his side of the football, and make them play even better. You know what I mean? So you got to give him a little bit more credit. I think Pierce
so
deserves some credit, as well as
yeah,
obviously, Patrick Graham got to come back. Patrick Graham has to come back.
yeah.
I'm not saying that it's all Pierce, but I think Graham needs to come back for sure.
Yeah. So what's been kind of alluded to, I think we kind of talked about this last show, and we played the clip of Bucky Brooks. And Bucky Brooks is a guy who's, I won't say he's like a Raider insider, but he has like kind of close ties with the Raiders. I want to say, did he play for the Raiders? Did he work for the Raiders at one point? He has some kind of connection to the Raiders, where he's a guy who would know the information. And basically, what he alluded to was that, look, AP didn't necessarily change the defense or come in and do anything. It was a situation where he was like, "Look, Pat, I'm gonna let you do what you want to do. I'm not gonna meddle in the defense. I'm not gonna try to change your game plan. However you want to run this defense is how you can run this defense." And I think that was the biggest thing. And I think the biggest part that AP kind of had a hand in was that we essentially replaced Marcus Peters with Jack Jones. And I think that having that upgrade at that particular spot, and then early in the year we were playing Jacorian Bennett and he was getting toasted out there. Even though Amik doesn't have the same ceiling as Jacorian Bennett, he's more solid in coverage than Jacorian Bennett was. And I think, just having those two improvement, the outside corner plus Malcolm Kuntz coming on, I think all of that is what led to the defense being a much improved unit. And AP has some credit for that because those guys were playing extremely hard. And I think, his ability to galvanize the guys and motivate the troops, I think that has something to do with why this defense was playing so well.
So
Too bad, but
you mentioned the interior, right? That defense started playing well, right?
I mean, they played better than they did initially.
Adam
Better than
Butler,
initially.
hey, Adam Butler was a solid pickup. I'm not gonna lie. When it's
Adam
all said and
Butler,
done, you could say he was a solid pickup.
yeah. I mean, two of our look. What's funny, right? Think about this. Think about this. Our through. I'm gonna ask you, what was our three best free agent pickups?
Spillane. Oh man. Like off season pickups.
Anytime,
What do you mean? Oh, I mean,
at
obviously,
any point, at any point this year.
Spillane, Jack Jones, and trying to think that third one. Oh, Jacoby Myers.
Okay, and probably Adam Butler would get like honorable mention, right?
Right. Role player.
Okay, of the four people named, where did three of those guys play?
I mean, yeah, they played on defense.
No, I'm saying where did they play? What team did they play for prior to playing with us?
Of all the Steelers, Patriots. Yeah,
Patriots
Patriots.
and Patriots, right? So
Yeah.
no, so peep this, peep this. When we were picking up Patriot guys in the offseason, well, first of all, everybody was crapping on Spillane. I was telling everybody Spillane is a good pickup, but people were crapping on Spillane. And every Patriot guy we picked up, including Jacoby Myers, people were crapping on. Wow, he's a Patriot guy. We don't want these Patriot guys. Jacoby Myers, was probably our second best offensive player this year. Adam Butler was probably our best interior defensive lineman. Him and John Jenkins, and he's a guy that kind of took Tyree under his wing. And then Jack Jones, after we picked him up, it was him, Max, and Spillane were our three best defensive players, by far. So, and well, I'm gonna say, and got throw Kuntz in here too, but He was a revelation on the outside. So, but nobody, but peep this, peep this. When we picked up Jack Jones, did anybody say, "Oh, we don't want another Patriot guy"? Did anybody say that? So that's my point about Antonio Pierce. He can get away with stuff that other coaches can't just because people like him. If we would have picked up if we would have picked up if Josh McDaniels was still on the team and we picked up Jack Jones,
It was an
people would be like,
exception
"Oh, well, right,
because you know what it is. Because what you're pointing out are exception to the rules. Like if you're gonna take out like Jacoby Myers was one of their best players offensively.
yeah."
Probably you could argue probably their best offensive weapon that they lost last year. You know what I mean? Like Jacoby Myers was probably their number one receiver last year before he left.
Well, he was the number one receiver. Yeah.
He was their number one receiver, and now he came to us as and we see how well he played with us. And then obviously Jones, we didn't mind that. We didn't mind that because we needed help at corner, young, talented corner, but it was just a perfect fit. Now, did we know that it was going to be this good? No.
No, nobody knew.
And at the end of the day, like we're not going to complain if a player is productive. Like we're not going to be like, oh, we don't want no Patriot player. Nah, at the end of the day, like all that matters is if you're a good player or not. You know what I'm saying? If you win, so it doesn't really matter. I think you're just pointing out the exceptions. A good example of like a Patriot player would probably be like a Brandon Bolden. You know what I mean? Like,
Brandon Bolden. But Brandon Bolden, we know what Brandon Bolden is here for. But my point is that we picked up players from all over the place. But people just wanted to just look at the Patriot guys. Those were the guys we focused on. We brought in more players this last free agency class than any other team. But people only focused on those Patriot guys because that's where Josh McDaniels came from. Jacoby Myers was the best free agent wide receiver, right? And people complain about us bringing him in because he was a former Patriot. Like, bro, he's the best wide receiver free agent on the market, and he took a sweetheart deal. Why are we complaining about bringing this guy in? Because he's a Patriot.
It's not because of that. It's not because of that. It's not because of that. It's not because he was a Patriot.
What are the reasons for it? Because it couldn't have been his talent. It couldn't have been his talent because he was the most talented wide receiver in the class.
It's not because it's not because of his talent. It's because it was a luxury pickup. We had other needs on the team, specifically at the time, defensively. Still, you still need to make some upgrades. We still need to add some talent to the defense as well as they played. There's some holes that need to be filled. But that being said, O-line, you know what I mean, which is still an issue. We could address the O-line instead of going for a luxury pickup, like because Jacoby Myers is a luxury pickup. When you're paying Devontae Adams like $30 million a year, and I'm exaggerating, but you guys get the point. Like he's getting paid a lot of money. Obviously, Hunter Renfrow, that's a lot of money to a slot receiver. Then you're giving another receiver another big contract. Come on now. At the end of the day, like it was more so that it was a luxury pickup more than that he was a Patriot. I think it was just maybe icing on the cake for someone to be like, oh, another Patriot. No, it wasn't that. Like people that knew football could say like, oh, okay, he's a solid player. He's not a bad player. He was better than I thought he was going to be. But at the same time, I still feel like it was kind of a luxury pickup. We could have addressed a different part of our team instead of picking up a wide receiver.
But I think my point is that we addressed every level of this team. We picked up offensive guard, right? We had picked up some tackles. We signed Haran, or we traded for Haran. We picked up
Grant season. And has he what has he done?
I thought we traded for Haran before the season, I thought.
No, during
Justin
the season.
Haran?
During
the season?
During the season.
I thought it was before the season. But okay, so but we traded a pick for him. We traded for Justin Haran. I want to say that was before the season. But then we picked up a safety, we picked up a corner, we picked up linebackers, we picked up defensive tackles. So we were addressing other things. It's just that when you get a player that's as good as Jacoby Myers was for what we were getting him for, and we still needed a number 2 receiver because Hunter Renfrow is not an outside receiver. So we still needed a number 2 receiver. And you have a guy that with that skill set you can get at that price that already knows your offense. that's a great pickup. But a lot of people, and I think the smart football minds were saying, hey, you know what? This money could have been spent elsewhere. But
Uh,
95% of what people were saying was they're Patriots.
to answer your question, Las Vegas Raiders acquired tackle Justin Herron and a 2024 seventh round draft pick via trade with the Patriots. This was back in September of 2022. So it was during the season that they traded for him.
Okay.
See, what I'm saying is that they really didn't address the O-line. They trust their coaching. They believed in their coaching more
Yeah.
than adding more talent to the O-line. They felt like if you looked at the Raiders, like the way they were built, they kind of like invested it in like, like basically the skill positions, like receivers, the running backs, the quarterbacks. But the O-line is not where the money was at. Like the O-line, like if you look at the O-line, it's like Colton Miller, and then you got Dylan
Yeah.
Parham, rookie deal. You got Andre
Yeah.
James on a cheap deal, you know what I mean, that they can get out of.
Yeah.
Van Roten, he was a journeyman backup player, like, and he's now
Yeah.
like he didn't have nothing to really like. It was an easy win for him because who was he again? Alex Bars,
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just
we got rid of Alex Bars. But I think so. I think some of it was we had young people in place that we wanted to see improvement out of, right? We have Thayer Munford here, who obviously everybody likes Thayer Munford. I think that's a guy that they wanted to give a chance to on either, if not, at right tackle on the interior of the defense or the offensive line. Andre James was still a relatively young player who had just signed it, a fairly expensive deal. I think they were going to give him every chance they could to see him develop, see how he does in the second year of the system. Then they brought in Van Roten. Then they had Parham, was a guy they just drafted in the third round. So I don't think they're going to like bring in a guy to replace him. No, I think most people felt last year Alex Bars was our weakest link on the offensive line, and we brought in a replacement for him. Now that replacement didn't do much better, but they replaced who people thought was the weakest link.
what I'm saying is those are just small like band-aids. They're not serious moves. That's all I'm saying. They're not really you can't tell me Van Roten and Justin Herron and even Illuminor. At this point, is he a starter? You know what I mean? He still has issues with pre-snap penalties. He might be a
Yeah.
backup on a good team with a good line. Like I think this offseason they gotta look at the trenches. They gotta if and Champ Kelly, I think if he's hired as GM, he's I think he's said in the past that he looks to build teams from the inside out. And if that's the case, then hey, O-line needs to be upgraded, bro. I just think they haven't done a good job in doing that, and giving a contract to Jacoby Myers. Come on, man, that's a luxury. It's not a bad. I'm not saying he's a bad player. It's just, bro, this ain't Madden. They're like they signed Devontae
Yeah.
Adams
I
to a
feel
big
you.
contract, Hunter Renfrow to a big contract, and Jacoby Myers. Like, come on, bro. Like, how are you going? And look at it. We can't. How do we even get the ball to some of these receivers because they can't protect the quarterback long enough to get the ball to the receivers. So that's just my thing, bro.
I mean, I don't think so. By most publications have our offensive line ranked top 10, right? They're
Come
usually
on, bro.
somewhere between eight and 12, right? I don't think protection, besides against some of the better teams, protection wasn't that big of a problem. I think.
Hell no.
I mean, I'm just going. These are what the numbers say, right? A lot of people like to look at Pro Football Focus. I think Pro Football Focus has like ninth or 10th ranked
Yeah.
offensive line, right?
Yeah.
But my point is that we didn't have an issue with guys or protection. We had an issue with guys not seeing open receivers, whether that was Jimmy Garoppolo, whether that was Aiden O'Connell. And when they did get pressure, they didn't have the ability to maneuver in the pocket to find throwing lanes or to buy receivers time. So I don't think that was necessarily, a product of offensive line issues. I think that's a product of poor quarterback play. So I think, if anything, we need to upgrade at quarterback.
Hey, when when the Raiders have an offense like they had this year, where they're like literally in the bottom of the league as far as points per game on offense, and we literally could, I don't know how many games, we damn near the whole season where we felt like they scored under 20 points. You know, how many
Yes.
games have we watched the Raiders offense, just as offense, score under 20 points, which is crazy to see, but we finished 8-9 because of the defense holding it down. It's a number of issues. It's not just one thing. It's not just the O-line. It's
Facts.
just it's even receivers. You know, Devontae Adams not being as good as he was in the past. You know what I mean? Dropping some balls. I'm not saying he's terrible, but like there was a drop off. You know, with Devontae, maybe that, and you probably could connect that with the inexperience and the QB play being as bad as it was. There's so many different issues, but yeah, man.
Facts.
Hey,
Facts.
just to get back on track. We were just talking about the coaching and GM rumors. We just got off track, but
Exactly. Facts.
yeah. But you know, one of the guys that got interviewed yesterday, Ed Dodds, that was a guy that I wanted the Raiders to hire the first time around. Before Josh McDaniels got hired, I actually wanted Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler got hired, and the reason being is that his background with the Colts. You know, he was part of the building that, you know, I think that year they had like the most Pro Bowlers on the Colts that year. And then you had, you know, he was part of the Seattle Seahawks. He was a scout with them. So he's been part of some buildings where they've built some teams. So he knows how to do it the right way. And he's built some really talented teams. And he has a background. He's been with the Raiders. He's been in the Raiders building. So it's kind of like, I thought it was like a match made in heaven. And then you hear like Ian Rappaport talk about like, oh, well, you know, he was the top candidate as an individual if it wasn't for McDaniels being a package deal. And I'm like, when I hear stuff like that, like, why don't you just hire Ed Dodds? Why don't you get the best people in the building? Why are you trying to get package deals? Like, but you know, the rest, it is what it is at this point. But
Yeah. I mean, I think that was so the reason why they went with Ziegler over Ed Dodds is because Mark Davis really wanted Josh McDaniels.
Yep.
The people in his ear were telling him, "You should hire Josh McDaniels." Some of those people were in the room still conducting these interviews, which is it's troubling. So in order to secure Josh McDaniels as head coach, you know, the only way Josh McDaniels would do it was if Dave Ziegler was hired as GM. So I think that's part of the reason why, you know, he didn't go with Ed Dodds. But man, I like Ed Dodds as a candidate. I would have loved to for him to be our GM last time. Like I said, man, like and that's what I'm talking about. Is that last time we kind of went away from the process. We were doing things, you know, not normally, right? Normally you hire a GM, you let your GM hire a coach. And it's consistently burnt us, right? It's consistently burnt us. We did the same thing with John Gruden. We let him pick his GM. Didn't work. We let Josh McDaniels pick his GM. It didn't work. So let's finally do things the correct way. Let's finally hire a GM and live with that GM's decision as head coach. And that decision, and the people have to understand, if we hire a GM and he wants to make a decision at head coach, that could mean that we don't hire Antonio Pierce. It could mean that. But we have to live with that. If we're going to do things the way they're supposed to be done, then we have to live with these decisions. And one of those decisions could be, hey, you know what? My GM, he prefers a more experienced candidate. He prefers somebody he has some familiarity with, yada, yada, yada. If Ed Dodge, you know, people automatically assume Ed Dodge is Jim Harbaugh. What I'm hearing is that even if Ed Dodge is hired as GM, it's not necessarily a guarantee that he brings Harbaugh. So if he's the most qualified person for the job, let's bring him in.
Yeah, and that's my thing, that he should have been the guy. If that was the case, if the rumors are true, you know what I mean, that he was the number one guy on the list as an individual GM when they interviewed.
Yes.
He should have been hired the first time around. We should never hire Ziegler. You know what I mean? And then he should have interviewed, you know, McDaniels if that was the case. But you know, that's just Mark Davis putting it, you know. Man, I don't even go that route, but Mark Davis making a big mistake there, trying to, you know, make a football decision when he's not the guy that should be making that type of decision. Even though he's the owner of the Raiders, he's proven time and time again, and he's admitted that he's not the guy that should be making strictly football decisions. But that being said, if Ed Dodds is the guy, I want him in the building, man. I like his background, and the thing is too, Mark Davis really liked Champ Kelly. When I looked at Champ Kelly's background, it wasn't as strong compared to Ed Dodds.
Right,
I was like looking at it, I'm like,
it's
I
not.
don't know. You know what I mean? I was looking at some of the Chicago Bears teams, and I was like, trying to look at some of these guys that, did they really pan out? Were they really good? Did he have some good drafts? Was he part of some good teams that built some? But when I look at Ed Dodds, he was part of some talented Colts rosters. He was a part of some talented, Seattle rosters, aka Legion of Boom. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
and he's a Raider guy through and through. So somehow, some way, if we're able to get Ed Dodds, I wouldn't be mad at that. And then, obviously, he should be part of the decision making and finding out who the next head coach is. And if it's Ed Dodds and maybe AP, you think the locker room is going to be mad at that? You think Raider Nation is going to be mad at that? I think they'll be good with that.
I don't know, man. I don't know if we hire Ed Dodds and he doesn't hire AP, I think people will be upset. It'll depend on who we do hire, but I think there will be a lot of people that are mad at that decision. Um, and like I said, there's no guarantee that he will bring in AP, right? I'm sure he'll come in, he'll evaluate things, he'll look at what AP has done. AP kept saying his resume is on grass. He took a below 500 team and went above 500 with them. Will be ironic. Will be ironic. What if we hired Champ Kelly and Champ Kelly like, yeah, I don't want AP. Like I want to bring in my own guy.
Well, hey, speaking of Ed Dodds, like I said, he interviewed yesterday, right? But
Yeah.
he does interview with the Chargers next week, and a rumor came out pretty much today, basically confirming that Jim Harbaugh will be interviewing with the Chargers, and he's looking to bring his own GM. And I think this article, it goes on to say that that pretty much that the Chargers are going to be looking to find a good pair with Jim Harbaugh. Meaning, I'm sure Jim Harbaugh is going to get his guy where he's probably going to be the guy that's going to be making the final decision on the roster, because that's probably what he's looking for. But man, Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers, man, that's the first interview that we're first team that's connected to the to Jim Harbaugh, and as far as getting an interview.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people now. There's some Raider fans that want Jim Harbaugh as a coach, or they want the Raiders to at least go after him. But right now the Raiders are focused on hiring their GM first before they interview their head coach. But the Chargers are kind of going a different route. And he says, however, let me see if I can make this real clear. Let me put this. I think this is blocking the text here.
Yeah, I mean, and I know you said Ed Dodds interviewing out there, and Harbaugh interviewing out there next week. I know they talked about one guy that could be going there as GM, and this very article I want to say is Gamble. I think he's like one of the athletic directors with Michigan. You know, they have a relationship working together in the past in San Fran. So he's a guy he brought with him to Michigan. He could be a guy he brings with him to the NFL as well if he kind of gets to decide on who his GM is. The thing that's going to be rough, and we kind of got to live with this, is that if we decide not to hire Jim Harbaugh and that guy goes to San Diego and they like just have a crazy good year, because he instantly improved that San Francisco team.
You mean LA? See, we have no respect for
Yeah,
the Chargers.
yeah,
We're just
man,
gonna say
yeah, I
San
keep
Diego.
forgetting,
We don't
man.
say LA. You know what I mean? It don't matter. It don't matter. But
Yeah, man. I think you called them the LA Chargers of San Diego. That's what you was calling them.
LA Chargers of San Diego, man. LA Chargers of San
Yeah,
Diego.
man. So I mean, because I want to say his first year with the Niners, if I'm not mistaken, he went like 11-5 or 12-4 or something like that. His very first year there. After they went 8-8 with Mike Singletary the year before. So I mean, there's nothing saying that he couldn't go to a very talented Los Angeles Chargers team. It feels weird saying that. and have a similar turnaround. And if it's a situation where it's like he's a guy that we had the opportunity to hire, he goes to our division foe, and he goes over there and have major success. That could be another situation where it could be a bad look. But by the same token, if we don't hire AP and he comes here and he doesn't have the level of success that fans want, it's going to be it's pitchforks will be out too. So it's a tough
Yeah, for
decision,
sure.
man. Mark has a very tough decision.
For sure, it's gonna be high expectations for Jim Harbaugh, but at this point, like that's what's gonna come with a guy that's won everywhere he's went.
Yeah,
Everywhere he's gonna go, there's gonna be high expectations. So it is what it
yeah,
is. A lot of people's attitude. There's some people's attitudes like, "Hey, we should at least go for Harbaugh, see what happens,
yeah,
and if it makes sense, it makes sense." Some people was like, you know what, we already got our guy in the building. But even if
yeah,
the Raiders can't hire AP right now, they have that. Like I said, they still have to go through that process. Right now, they're still in the process of trying to look for a GM. Once they find their GM, then they're going to start conducting interviews. And I think that after they've gone through that process, I think by the 21st or 22nd, I believe that's when some people are saying that they can actually confirm or at least hire a head
yeah,
coach after they've kind of
yeah. It's
yeah.
yeah. There's some timeline. It has to do with like so it's something to do with the playoffs. I want to say, but it's like the 21st or the 22nd. I forgot what I read, but like they still have to hire. I mean, they still have to interview those outside candidates. They still have to fulfill the Rooney Rule with people outside of the organization. I want to say so. It's not like in the past where you can just hire. I mean, you can just interview some dudes internally. Now you have to actually go outside the organization, and it has to be multiple candidates. So, and I think they fulfilled it possibly already with GM candidates. We got the guy Trey Brown from the Bengals and the guy from the Bills, and then we also interviewed that lady that worked for the Broncos. So I think we kind of already fulfilled it with GM. So I mean, we could very well be seeing a GM hire very soon. And if we hire a GM, this 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 upcoming week or whatever, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a head coaching hire made on that very first day we can, or very shortly thereafter.
Okay. Let's get into the chat, man. We see y'all, man. Hey, appreciate everybody coming through. Make sure to hit that. Make sure to hit that like button.
Yes,
Subscribe if you haven't subscribed.
yes,
Hit that notification bell. Hey, we appreciate the support. So support my guy, the Severe Raider. As you can see it, you can find him all
facts,
over
facts.
social media. But if you're watching this, man, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. But yeah, man,
Facts.
let's get into the chat real quick. Look, I'm telling you, he said Ed Dodds will be a cool. That's what I'm saying, man. Like I actually like
Yeah,
him. Like I
yeah,
like
man.
his resume. I like his experience. There's some other guys that's qualified as well, and I'm not saying Champ Kelly can't be that guy, but this is why I'm enjoying that process. You know what? What I forgot to mention too as well. Did you see like who's part of the interview process for the GM? Did you see that?
Yeah, man. Man, your boy is back. Your boy,
Oh
your
my
boy,
god!
your boy Ken Henrock is back. He's
Hold on,
back for
man.
round two, man.
Basically, Tashawn Reed today basically had a tweet, and I'll go ahead and pull that up real quick. And he pretty much listed out per league sources. Let me see if I could put this on the screen real quick for everybody to see. Per league sources, he says part of the interview panel, obviously owner Mark Davis, President Sandra Douglas Morgan, board member Larry Delson, SVP, Director of Football Administration Tom Delaney, and this guy, the guy that didn't want to ask Josh McDaniel what happened in Denver. He didn't even want to. What happened in Denver? Like this, he didn't even want to ask that question. Like he didn't think it was important. Ken Henrock, he didn't want to ask that question. He's part of the. I'm surprised. Like that's even.
Yeah,
It is what it is, man. But this is the kind of like the interesting one. We didn't see this coming. But Richard Seymour is also part
yes,
of that interview panel. So I don't know how to feel about it, because it's always something new. Everybody kind of thought Tom Brady was going to be the guy right here, was going to be in this panel, because everybody was like, hey, Tom Brady's in Mark Davis' ear, which I'm sure he is. I mean, all he has to do is call Mark Davis, and he probably could talk to him real quick. But Richard Seymour being that guy, like in an interview, I thought that was surprising. But as long as we get the right guy, man, that's all I care about. But I'm still disgusted by this right here. The guy that didn't want to ask that question, man.
Your boy Ken is still in that piece, man. I will say this. We know, and two. I would say two things. Most of the people that are there are the usual suspects, people you expect to be there. You got the president, Sandra Douglas Morgan. Of course, Mark Davis is going to be there. You got the Tom Delaney, of course. You guys going to be there. The two last names are the two names that are the most interesting. As we already said before, because of previous decisions made, and Ken Henrock, and then Richard Seymour, who's a guy who really just had a cup of coffee with the Raiders, right? He wasn't like with us for a very long time. He's with us at the end of his career. Didn't stay too long. Like Mark Davis, I would say Mark Davis is a loyal dude, man. Like Mark Davis, and he really lives by that mantra: once a Raider, always a Raider. Because other than that, I wouldn't see why we would have a guy like Richard Seymour be involved in this process. But he really lives by that once a Raider, always a Raider thing. So, and Richard Seymour, he could be a guy that maybe Tom Brady. We said Tom Brady's not there. Maybe he is, Tom Brady's eyes and ears.
In spirit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly right. But he could be Tom Brady's eyes and ears. He could be a guy like, hey, Richard Seymour, what do you think? What are your impressions? And there are two of the leaders on that Patriots team, so I'm sure Tom Brady has a lot of trust in what Richard Seymour has to say. So it could be a situation where, hey, you know what, you go there. I have some other obligations to attend to. I can't make it, but I trust your opinion on this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. Yeah, I mean, I guess is another example. Hey, Mark, does this go to Mark Davis just trying something new? He's trying to, but at least get this guy out the panel. Like, come on, man, Ken Henrock, whatever, man, this dude. He openly admitted that he didn't ask him like that. That was crazy. That's crazy. But
Ken Henrock is like 80-some years old too. I want to say, right? And he like in his 80s.
Yeah, man.
Like, come on, bro. Bro.
It is what it is, man. But yeah, man, Daniel Kim in the building. Appreciate you coming through. I think it's interesting. It's silver and black lining that through the mistake of bringing in Zeeks and McNuggets, we got AP.
Yeah.
There you go.
You look at it like that, man.
There you go.
We have to go through that terrible time to get our coach of the future, possibly. So we'll see.
Yeah, but like they have to recognize it. They have to actually make the move and actually make that, decide that they're going to be the next head coach of the Raiders, which they haven't done already. But like I said, it's still a process. They still got to hire that GM first. But Adam Schefter came out with a report. We can actually get into that real quick, Liz, if you want to go ahead. Go ahead and play that clip of Adam Schefter talking about the chances of AP becoming head coach. Give me just a second here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Vegas in an interesting situation. What more can you tell us about Antonio Pierce's future with the team?
There is mounting support for him to stay, and he has emerged as the leading candidate to become a full-time head coach for the Las Vegas Raiders. I had one person tell me last night, that he would be blown away if Antonio Pierce were not the selection, which doesn't mean he will be, but it just tells you that he is in a position where he's got a real possibility. You see Maxx Crosby and the hug he got there. Antonio Pierce has the support of the key players in that Raiders locker room. They want him to stay on as the head coach. They've spoken out about it. He's popular in that locker room. And look, the last time the Raiders were in this situation, they had an interim head coach in Rich Bisaccia. The players liked. Mark Davis went and hired Josh McDaniels. Now there's another situation where there's an interim head coach in Antonio Pierce. Players want to keep him. Next move, Mark Davis.
Going full gladiator here. If you win the people, you've already won. All right, let's.
Man,
But they got it quit at the end, man.
look, like I said earlier, man. I just hope that it's not a decision being made because the players and fans say so, man. I just hope that it's a decision that he makes because he actually believes like this is the guy. This is a guy that he feels like that can lead the Raiders back to glory, back to winning Super Bowls, back to being a winning franchise. If he's doing it just because, oh, okay, well, man, the he's feeling the pressure of the players and the fans, but I'm not sure if that's gonna amount to anything good. If that's the only reason.
Yeah, man. That's like I said earlier. That's not how you want to run your organization. Last time we kind of listened to players who lobbied for a head coach, it was Joe Bugle, and we went 4-12, and he was fired after one season. So, it can go either way, right? It could be a situation where, hey, you know what, we bring in a guy that players want and it works extremely well, or it could be a situation where we bring in a guy players want and it's a disaster. And so it's a wait and see, right? Under these particular circumstances, Antonio Pierce performed extremely well. But next year, and that's kind of in a situation where he was playing with house money. Nobody expected anything of him because he's an interim guy taking over a team that had, basically underachieved. So the expectations were fairly low. So when you have low expectations, that changes how you do things. When you get into the situation where it's your job and the buck stops with you, that's completely different, right? We saw like a perfect example of this. And this is like kind of a microcosm of what happened. Uh, we we had expectations come off our bye week, right? To beat the Minnesota Vikings. I think most people would have thought we were going to beat the Minnesota Vikings. At least most people in the Raider Nation had us beating the Minnesota Vikings. And we lost that game, and we performed pretty poorly. We didn't have any expectations against the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Nobody expected us to win that game. We go into that game and we win. We had expectations after that win to go into Indianapolis and win that game, and we lost. And at the end of the season, when nothing really mattered anymore, we go out and play well. So this team doesn't do well with expectations. And next year, Antonio Pierce is going to have some expectations on him because at that point, he is the coach. The buck stops with you. So, it's no more, hey, I didn't have my staff, I didn't have my guys. Now you've had a full offseason, you've hired your staff, you've brought in your players. What are you going to do with it? And it could be a situation where, hey, you know what? He takes off like a rocket because he's able to perform well enough with another guy's people in place, or it could be a situation where the team and him can't handle the expectations.
Hey, Severe, my answer to that is I think a team is better against expectations when they have a quarterback. It's as simple as it helps when you got a guy that can get you 7 points, that can make a big play when you need it, that can win it in the fourth quarter when you need it, that can get a big play with his legs or get a first down with his legs when you need it.
Yes.
Which we don't have. We just don't have. Aiden O'Connell, much respect to him. I think he's a backup. If y'all want to argue about this, y'all can do whatever y'all want to do, man. But I still feel like he's gonna be a backup. I think it's not a bad thing. I think I like him as a backup. I like him as a backup. But I want the Raiders to go out this draft and get like a first round QB, at least within that first couple rounds. Your boy Cam Ward, he's going back to college.
He's going to Miami, yeah. He's a guy I like. I think a lot of people like him more than I like him. I watched him play at Washington State, rather. I wasn't as impressed with him as other people were, but he's a solid prospect. I think he has some mobility. They throw the ball a lot at Washington State, so he has a lot of reps. But he wasn't a guy I was super high on. But I think that's a smart thing for him because he can come back next year and improve his draft stock a little bit. Next year is a little bit of a weaker QB class. Really his top comp right now is probably Shador. Like, I guess Quinn Ewers as well. Quinn Ewers is going back to school, so it's not the same level of competition he's going to face in this draft class, which is probably most people say is one of the best QB draft classes in a long time. So I
Which
think it was a smart decision by him.
which but which I which well, the reason why I brought it up too is that's one less quarterback that's going to be in this draft, which
Oh
increases the
yeah,
value of the quarterbacks that are already there and makes it that much harder for the Raiders at 13 to get their guy. You know what I mean? It's going to be tough, man. When on top of having like teams in front of them that want QBs,
yeah,
that it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But look, there's still
yeah.
going to be a lot of time between now and then. But Daniel Kim, I think he's going to take us to the next topic right here. He says, "Do you think they'll announce the GM early this week?" So that's a good segue to our coach and GM prediction, man. Who do you think the next Raiders coach and GM is going to be?
Honestly, I think it's going to be Champ Kelly and Antonio Pierce. I think it's a situation where, this is a point you bring up a lot. This point you bring up a lot when talking about the previous coaching staff and the fact that Mark Davis felt it was necessary to go to the players and apologize to them. And I think, part of that was not, heeding what they asked for in terms of, a lot of them wanting Rich Bisaccia. And so I think he's not going to make that same mistake twice. I think he's going to listen to the leaders on his team, and it's not just the leaders on his team. He got people like Charles Woodson and I think Tim Brown and like other Raider legends saying this is the guy that we want in Antonio Pierce, and I think the best odds of him if his GM being in lockstep with Antonio Pierce as head coach is for him to hire Champ Kelly. I think if you bring in Ed Dodds and you really want your GM to hire the coach, Ed Dodds may and probably will want to go in a different direction. So that's why I think it's probably going to be Champ and Antonio Pierce.
I'm just gonna go curveball. You know what I mean? I agree. I do. I feel like it's gonna be Champ Kelly or Champ Kelly and Pierce, but I just feel like Ed Dodds.
Man, yeah,
I see the connect. I like him as a GM. I wanted him the first time, and now the Raiders went out their way to go ahead and interview him again. And he is that one candidate that kind of sticks out for me. I think that if the Raiders could somehow, some way get him in the building, I think it's a real possibility. He is interviewing with the Chargers next week, which obviously he's able to do that. It is what it is. But I think that Ed Dodds, AP. I know random combination,
I would.
but
You know what? I would like that. Let's say if we can keep. Do you think? Okay, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. That's your combination. In that scenario, do we keep Champ Kelly as assistant GM?
well, look. Earlier, Mo Moton, he made he made a point today, and I'm not sure, and I'll try to ask him this personally, but he said, what happens if Ed Dodds and Champ Kelly for GM and president of football operation roles? Because a while ago, to Sean Reed, and I'll go ahead and pull that up real quick, just so that people can see what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
So maybe this is wishful thinking for me, but what if Raiders hire Ed Dodds and Champ Kelly for GM and president of football operation roles? A while ago, Tashawn Reed posted the question about hiring the president of football ops. I think it could work if the Raiders hire AP. And what he's referring to is Tashawn. I think he had an article where there was a question that was posed to Mark Davis, and he said that there needs to be a football mind in the building. But I think when Mark Davis was answering that question, I think he was referring to maybe someone that's more experienced, that's not a GM,
Exactly.
that would oversee two rookie rookie head coach and a rookie GM. So I'm not sure if Ed Dodds would fit that role, but I don't know, man. If that's a
Nah.
possibility, Ed Dodds and Champ Kelly in the building, I don't know if that would make sense because they would probably be clashing a lot, because they're two guys that I'm not sure they're familiar with each other. But what do you think about this?
Yeah, man. I'm on the same wavelength as you, man. I think it's much more likely if we're gonna have Ed Dodds and Champ Kelly in the building, much like we did with Ziegler, where Champ Kelly has basically no affiliation with Ziegler. Mark Davis kind of made the decision he wants Champ Kelly in here as his assistant GM. I wouldn't be surprised if he offered it to Ed Dodds and Ed Dodds turned it down just because it's a lateral move. But I think it's more likely we see a situation where Ed Dodds is the GM, Champ remains assistant GM, and we hire with somebody with more experience to be president of football operations. It would make absolutely no sense to hire a guy as president of football operations to oversee a rookie head coach and a rookie GM who has never even been a GM himself. Like that makes no sense. Like why are you gonna like the whole point of this? The whole point that he kind of alluded to was that he wanted somebody with experience, and that's what he learned from the Reggie McKenzie and Dennis Allen ordeal. Is that since he's not a football guy, he needs a football guy in there to kind of oversee that thing. So it would make no sense for him to bring in Ed Dodds, who hasn't really overseen anything. He's never even really been a GM. How's going to,
Yeah.
I mean, but I guess unless you want to, unless he does the Antonio Pierce where he's never been a coordinator and goes straight to head coach. But
Yeah.
I don't see that happening.
Yeah. Now I hope. Yeah, I like Champ Kelly, but I just Ed Dodds, man. We got if we can
Yeah,
find a
man.
way to bring him in, but it is what it is. Like I said, whoever the best man, if they feel like Champ Kelly's the guy, he should be the guy. At the end of the day,
Yeah,
it shouldn't be
right.
because I say that he should be the guy because of oh, he has a background. Because at the end of the day, like he interviewed the last time and he didn't get a job. So maybe, but this time around, I think he's gonna get a job this time. I think he's gonna get a GM job this time around because there's about like how many openings? I knew at least head
It's
coach.
4.
Is it about
Oh,
4
talking about
GM?
head coach openings? It's
I
4
think it's
GM openings, I want to say, and 8 head
okay.
coaching head coaching openings. Because
Okay.
it was more, but Adam Peters didn't even take an interview with us. He just took the Washington Commanders job. So I
Yeah.
think he's a guy we wanted to interview. I don't know if he turned us down or he just took the job before we even had a chance to interview him. But that job got filled, so that there's 4 left.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll kind of see. But I think Ed Dodge does get hired this cycle. Personal preference, I would prefer Ed Dodds. Just looking at what Chicago's done in the draft, looking at what the coach has done in the draft and in free agency, I prefer Ed Dodds as
And
GM.
Seattle too. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
yeah,
He was part of that too. Like it's not like
yeah,
that's his background. His background is Seattle and the Colts. And obviously he
yeah,
spent some time as a scout with the Raiders, I believe, so
yeah.
oh
So
man, but
I prefer Ed Dodds, but I think Champ Kelly just has. I think he has all the momentum right now. He's kind of already in the role, so I think that's going to kind of be where they go with it.
Yeah, no doubt. And to answer your question, Daniel, yeah, I think it's gonna come soon, man. I think the GM hire is gonna come soon. I think it's probably gonna
Yeah,
be early this week,
yeah,
if not maybe after the probably on Tuesday.
yeah.
Tuesday,
That's my
maybe
assumption.
Tuesday at latest, maybe.
After the holiday. I would say, yeah, like the middle of next week, like Thursday. I would think I would assume would be like the latest. I think by Thursday we'll have a decision made. My
Okay.
question is that I know Mark Davis really wanted to hire this president of football operations. I don't know even who the candidates would be and what kind of timeline that would have either. Just because you need a guy in place soon, if that because the offseason is kicking in a high gear soon. I mean, I think the Senior Bowl is like next month or something like that. I want to say.
Yeah.
So
Hey, it's things is coming up fast, man.
fast.
Football, but
Football
yeah,
is
man.
all year round, man.
Yeah, Ryan Reyes says salute, Farrell, salute, Severe. Appreciate the great work. Hey, man, appreciate you coming through,
Hey,
man.
salute you, brother. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you coming through, man. But let's get into it, man. So look, if AP is the guy, right? Let's just
Hmm.
hypothetically speaking, let's say if he gets hired, if we go to AP, um, one of the biggest. I think we can all agree that PG most likely there's a good chance that he's going to come back. Let's say the defensive side comes back, right? That the big question mark is that offensive side.
Yeah.
And who would do you think Hargreaves comes back as an offensive coordinator? And if you don't think so, who would be like some guys that come to mind? Like who would be a replacement at offensive coordinator?
So I don't think Hardegree comes back. I would hope he doesn't come back, but you never know. You never know. Maybe AP is feeling the same thing. Like, you know what? Hey, this guy didn't get a chance to implement his playbook. These aren't necessarily his players. Let's give him a chance. I kind of hope that's not his thinking, but that's always a possibility. No, I think a guy we could look at Arthur Smith. Uh, I think Frank Reich is a guy we can look at as well. I know the popular name among Raider Nation is Eric Bieniemy. But my preference is that since we have a young head coach with no head coaching experience, not even any coordinator experience in the NFL, I kind of would like to have one of the coordinators, whether it's the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, be a guy that has head coaching experience in the NFL and somebody that can kind of, be there to help AP with these head coaching decisions. We've saw all this past season, kind of AP kind of fumbled the bag in terms of clock management, managing his timeouts. His challenges were kind of like hit or miss. So you kind of want a guy, at a coordinator position, somebody that's going to have his ear, somebody that's high enough in the staff where he has to listen to him to be there and kind of say, hey, you know what, this is the kind of direction we should go. This is how you handle this. And I think Frank Reich is a guy that would be great with that. Arthur Smith, his tenure in Atlanta didn't go that great, but he's a guy that has head coaching experience as well and offensive background, so he could work also.
I like it. You got guys that got experience in the building who've proven successful coordinators, and I think that they would probably be there for a little bit too as well before they.
Yeah.
Because think about it, if you go for that young, bright offensive minded coach, as soon as he gets a head coach opportunity, he's gone, and then that's like a coach that won't be there to develop the quarterback that you drafted probably under him. But hey, I think another guy that you didn't mention was Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy is a guy that you can't discount the part that he was part of the development of Patrick Mahomes. At the end of the day, like if you look at the Chiefs offensively, since he's been gone, they have not looked the same, and he was just there last year with pretty much the same, pieces on offense, minus maybe a guy or two. So, and they look pretty solid the year before. So I'm thinking, hey, look, at the end of the day, Bieniemy, I think he could be a guy over there. But there is a threat that if, like, let's say he has a big time year with the Raiders offense, turns him around, he might be gone as a head coach. So Arthur Smith, I do like him. You know that if he comes in the building, you already know that it's gonna fit with how AP wants to run that offense, and he's gonna run that ball. He's gonna run that ball. It's gonna be heavy play action.
Yes.
But hey, for a young QB to come into that, I think that's pretty much a good, nice little offense to come into. So yeah, I agree with Arthur Smith. I'll add Eric Bieniemy. You mentioned Frank Reich. That's a good one. But if you're gonna get one of these QBs and you know that they know how to use their legs, a guy that keeps getting forgotten is that head coach of the Cardinals. My guy, he's out in USC.
Cliff Kingsbury?
Yeah. Kingsbury.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about him as an offensive coordinator, because he's kind of like, that spread offense, like,
Yeah. No, man, I've mentioned him in the past. I don't know if he's ready to dip his toe back into NFL waters. I know he was getting some looks for coaching jobs in the college ranks. I think Cliff Kingsbury would be great just because he's kind of all the things you want in one, right? He's a guy that has, first of all, he's still young, so he's young enough to relate to the players. He still is offensive, is very innovative. He has experience in the college ranks where they're doing a lot of creative things. He can bring some of that to the NFL. He had a hand in developing Caleb Williams, who no matter how you feel about him, he's a guy that won a Heisman Trophy under him, and he's the projected number one overall pick in this draft, and he's had head coaching experience at the NFL level. So it was successful, but he has that experience, so he kind of checks all those boxes. So I think he's a guy you can look at, and he's a guy where I don't think even if he comes in and he has immediate success with the Raiders, I don't think people will instantly be knocking down his door to hire him as a head coach after how things ended with the Cardinals. So I think you're kind of safe on there, where he'll be around 3-4 years at least before teams really start sniffing around him again for another head coaching job.
Yeah, I feel like he's probably gonna want to go to like stay in college a little bit, maybe get a head coaching job,
Yeah.
and just go from there. But you might be right about that. But like, hey, this week, we mentioned Patrick Graham. He's definitely a coach that we want to stay. We want him to stay with the Raiders, man, especially the job that he did with the Raiders defense this year. But he had an opportunity to interview with, I believe, the Jaguars for the same position, defensive coordinator, and the Raiders blocked the position, which is a great sign. Like, hey, at least the Raiders, they made a smart decision on that side of the football. They're like, nah, we're not gonna let you go for the same position to another team. Even though he wouldn't be hired, he still would have been interviewed, and it could have been a possibility he could have been offered a contract. But the Raiders, I guess within their, the rights that they had, they blocked that interview. What did you think about that move?
Oh man, so I'm of two minds of that move, right? Ideally, we bring Patrick Graham back. I don't think Patrick Graham gets enough credit for the success of this defense. I think a lot of people attribute it to Antonio Pierce, and though I do think Antonio Pierce did play a part in it, I think like the majority of it, like 75% of it, 75% of the credit should go to Patrick Graham. Uh, I'm of this mind of it, right? Let's say we bring in another coach, and the coach doesn't want Patrick Graham. So you kept him from possibly securing another job somewhere else while you kind of, held his position here in limbo. And I don't think that's a good look at as an organization. Even if you weren't going to allow him to be hired, at least allow him to go there and interview. And if he does well enough, they can say, hey, we're willing to wait and kind of see what happens with your current position. And then, if that doesn't work out with you, we have a position for you here. So, and we were told that all the staff were kind of free to go interview elsewhere. And so for them to say, hey, what, everybody can go interview elsewhere, Patrick Graham, you cannot go interview here. I think, while I want him back, that could be a situation where that kind of hurts us.
Yeah, man. I just hope that we don't lose him because there's an opportunity. I think that if it's a head coach position, I think the Raiders can't stop that. I think he can go out and interview for
No.
that. And
Yeah.
hey, some people have noticed, man, the job that he did with the Raiders defense, with the especially with the talent that he had, and be able to get that much out of them, might have turned some heads around the league. Like, hey, look, this guy was getting interviews for head coaches before he got to the Raiders as a defensive coordinator. So, if he does another good job next year, let's say he stays he's gone. I think he's going to be gone after the 2024 season. But that being said, I think it's a smart move out of Raiders. Hopefully, Raiders could keep him. They keep him as a defensive coordinator, but they didn't keep their offensive line coach.
No.
Carmen Brasillo went to the Giants they didn't block the move. He goes over to the Giants, interviews, and now he's the offensive line coach for the Giants under Brian Daboll, which there's a connection there. Obviously, there's like a Patriot connection. So What do you think about that move, man? Was that a big loss? You feel like it's a big loss, or?
I mean, I don't know necessarily it was a big loss. I think Carmen Barcelo did an admirable job here with the talent that was given to him. I think we seen development out of Illuminor. He cleaned up his penalties a lot this year. Wasn't nearly as bad as it was last year. I think we saw some development out of Thayer Munford as well. We kind of liked what we saw out of Dylan Parham at center. Didn't kind of perform as well as guard as we would have liked, but at center we kind of like what we saw there. So I think he was doing a pretty good job. And as you kind of mentioned earlier, we didn't give him a lot of resources in terms of high end draft picks. I think we attempted to draft a tackle this past draft, and a team moved up in front of us, so that kind of kept us from it there. So with what he was given, I think he did a good job. Ironic that he went to New York, who had an opening there because since New York and Wink Martindale mutually parted ways, they also have a defensive
Little
coordinator
drama.
position open, huh?
There's a little bit of drama. I think.
Yeah, so they also have a defensive coordinator position open now. So you know,
We'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, man. You know what? At the end of the day, I think with the offensive side of the football kind of struggling the way it did last season, I think that they're gonna blow it up. Whoever it's gonna start with the offensive coordinator. I think he's gonna have that ability to pick his own staff, pick his own offensive line coach. I think that's how the Raiders kind of looked at it. I mean, was it a huge loss? Yeah, I don't know, but I think he could be replaced. I think what they need to do is add more talent. Stop, you know what I mean? It's they have all these temporary fix, these journeymen, offensive linemen. At the end of the day, they need to find some permanent young fixes at this offensive line, specifically the interior, that right side. They need to figure it out, man. They got some. They're gonna have to figure it out, man. They got some cap space.
yes,
Hopefully, I don't know how this draft is gonna shake out because as much as we need offensive line help, and we could say like maybe they need to use the draft picks on maybe getting an offensive lineman. But guess what? If the Raiders are going to get a quarterback, they're probably going to have to trade up. If they're going to trade up, they're going
yeah,
to have to give us some draft picks. So maybe they're going to have to target an offensive lineman or two in free agency and then go from there. But we'll see how that shakes out, man. Man, it's been a good show, man. Good
facts,
show,
facts,
man. Hey,
facts.
finally, we went live on
Finally,
Severe Raiders channel. If y'all haven't subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. It all helps. Man, support my guy, man. He's an up and coming Raider content creator. Obviously, you see his name on the screen. Follow him all over social media. You see my name, PharoahNFL, man. But yeah, man. We see the chat going crazy
yes,
too as
sir.
well, man. I see you guys got conversation within conversations over here. I'm trying to like figure out like, all right,
Exactly,
what's going on, man? Y'all having a big meeting
exactly.
over here. But Raider, before we had Raiders 702 says, what are you guys doing first round? Quick.
First round, if we can get a good enough realistic deal to move up for a quarterback, I would do that. If not, I'd stay put and I'd select the best defensive player on the board.
I agree. Trade up. Try to see if we can trade up and get us a QB. Obviously, if we can't make that happen, get the best. I don't know, man, trench player. I'm not gonna lie. It could be O
Yeah,
lineman. It could be obviously interior D lineman, or be honest, corner.
yeah. I think we need a number one corner too. I think we
Yeah,
need we need. I mean, I think where we need help on the line is the interior. I think the first round is kind of too high for that. I don't think there's any premium like guards or centers in this draft class. But if we
yeah.
want to go for like a premier defensive tackle or a premier corner, I wouldn't mind that.
When I meant offensive line, I was mainly talking tackle. Maybe getting a tackle.
Tackle,
If
a right
getting
tackle.
another. Yeah, exactly. And Yeah, I think where we're at number 13, we might be able to get maybe one of the top corners on the board. Because a lot of
Yes,
the teams in front of us are trying to get quarterbacks. If we're not able to trade up
exactly.
and get those quarterbacks, that means there's going to be some premier players at other
Facts.
valuable positions of need are going to be right there at number 13. So specifically a corner. So I think corner could be a good position for us to go after. But hey, like I said, hey, that's a few months away. There's still a lot of things that could happen. Obviously, you got to look at what happens in free agency before we figure out where the Raiders are going to go at number 13.
Yeah.
But I hope it's a quarterback. I hope we trade up and get a quarterback, man. Because man, it's gonna
Nah,
make Sundays even more exciting, man. If we got a
man,
young C.J. Stroud, did you see what he did today, man? First
man.
half, 3 touchdowns. Almost.
Coleridge out there
Woo!
killing. Your boy
God
Coleridge,
dang,
man. I
man.
try to tell people, man. Look, I told people. I did that. I told people, and like I said earlier in the season too. I was talking about Bobby Slowick. Bobby Slowick about to get a head coaching job, man. Bobby Slowick is gonna get a head coaching job,
Yeah,
man.
he's done a great job, man. He called a good game today. Good
Yeah,
game today.
he's about to get a coaching job. I was telling people about that earlier, man. He's gonna get a head coaching job. And one of my early offensive coordinator candidates, and Jared Johnson, or Gerard Johnson, he's a quarterbacks coach for the Texans. If Slowick gets hired somewhere, he'll probably get elevated there, so that might take him kind of off the board for an offensive coordinator job with one of these teams. But yeah, man, we need a quarterback, man. I'm all in on Jaden Daniels. I'm all in on Michael Penix. I know he had a rough game against Michigan, but I'm all in on those two guys, man. Remember, I said it. Remember, I said it.
Jaden Daniels is your number 1 quarterback in the draft.
That's my favorite quarterback in the draft. Yeah,
Oh man, look,
yeah.
you see how you try to
Nah,
moonwalk. Pay attention to the words,
nah,
y'all. Who's the number 1
nah.
QB in your? If you had to rank your QBs, who's your number 1 QB?
I'm putting Jane Daniels number one. I'm putting Jane Daniels number one. I'm
There you
putting
go.
Michael
That's all I'm
Penix
saying.
number two.
Stand on it, man. Just stand on it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Jane Daniels one and Michael Penix two.
Michael Penix 2, Caleb Williams.
Not a fan, brother. Not a fan. Zach Wilson 2.0, bro. Zach Wilson 2.0.
Hey man, if Caleb Williams drops to the Raiders, man, or somehow, some way the Raiders can get Caleb Williams, and they believe in him, that's all. That's really what matters too. That they gotta be all in. Whoever,
Yeah,
don't let it be a situation where the owner likes him or this guy likes him and he comes in there and he's not developed the right way. If they're all in on the QB, that also matters too. And
yeah.
the talent, bro, Caleb Williams, man, if he's there, man, you serious? Come on, man. Hey, this is documented. This is recorded right now. I'm just
Hey,
letting you
bro,
know, man.
record it. Look, we can go back in time. Look at all the stuff I said. I've been talking about CJ Stroud since I was calling in, talking about CJ Stroud.
All right, man. Hey, man, we appreciate everybody coming through, man. Hey, man, till next time.
For
Peace.
sure. Peace.